Hello, my absolutely brilliant and beautiful astrology soulmates, and welcome back to the channel. Now, in this video today, we are going to talk about Jupiter moving into the vibration of Leo. This is a lovely, exciting, once every 12 years transit that we are going to be experiencing. So we have a chance to not only explore what the energy means and what it is bringing into our lives via transit, but also to look back in our own stories and our own cycles so we can see where we have already been. And while we do not always repeat everything, we do have a rhythm. We do have a rhythm, and this is what I love about astrology is, first of all, we get to go back into our own stories, review our lives, our thinking, our behavior at the time, because the last time Jupiter moved into Leo, it was triggering off some of the same exact things in your chart. So you really have this beautiful base of your own experience and wisdom, which is very Jupiterian, to draw from to say, okay, I'm coming into the same or similar type of event and timing in my life. How do I learn from what I did last time to really maximize the opportunities that Jupiter is going to have available for me? Now, not every Jupiter transit brings the opportunities for growth in ways that just feel like I'm so lucky. I'm really lighting up the sky over here, right? It's a spectrum of what these experiences bring to you. And it's also a spectrum of where you are in learning what Jupiter is speaking to in your personal chart and where the opportunity to get into that growth, into that wisdom is at. So we'll be exploring that as well. Now, if we've never met before, I'm practicing professional astrologer Stormie Grace, and it's a real privilege and a pleasure to have you here. I do hope that you hear something on this channel that makes you want to stay and come back and join our community, but mostly bring the language of astrology closer into your life so that you can do with it as you wish, but use it to live a lot more consciously. Now, there are going to be timestamps in the description box down below because I'm also going to break it down for you by house. So it's very important that you have, of course, your natal chart, one, so we can see where the very best astrology is happening, and that is in your chart. The very best astrology is your astrology. So don't worry about needing to search that all up and down. There'll be timestamps in the description box and in the comments down below, so you can go right to where this transit is happening in your particular chart. And to take it one step further and really help you get into your own language of astrology, you can pick up my new book, The Big Book of Planetary Aspects. I would love for you to grab this. There is a section in there on Jupiter specifically. And like I said, every time Jupiter comes into Leo, it is activating a similar pattern in your natal chart. So you want to see, where is Jupiter speaking to a natal planet or point in your chart? And then what does the breakdown of that mean? How do you begin to engage that? That's exactly what this book was built for, to help you get into that conversation and make a bit more sense of these transits. Now, check it out. For the past year, as Jupiter has been traveling through this vibration of Cancer, it's really had us looking a bit more inward and looking more at the space of emotional security, home, healing our roots, creating stronger foundations. For some people, it was a very specific I live here or I don't live here kind of conversation, but it's been a very much so an inward reflection of our personal lives, and then externally that was maybe made truth, but much of the growth was happening in a place that was more quiet, more beneath the surface. And it's like, really, you could only see the changes once the perspective was really flipped from the inside out. But Leo is something entirely different for us. Leo is not here to whisper about our inner world. It is shining. Leo is not looking for the spotlight. It is the spotlight. So this is the place in your chart where your chart's already going, I'm already the sun over here. I'm already the sun, right? It wants to create. It is fire. It wants to lead. It's fixed fire. It wants to love. It wants to risk. Leo in our chart is a reminder that each of us carries a chispa, a spark, a light, a flame, and it's unique to every single one of us. And it's actually never meant to be hidden, but sometimes it gets fanned a bit. It gets blotted out a bit. by all sorts of worldly things, our own thinking, our own doing, our own beings, right? But now as Jupiter comes into this fiery Leo sign, collectively, we're also going to have access to the energy to encourage us to be more visible. We will all be under this energy. We will all be under the energy of becoming more creative, more courageous in a more outward way. This transit, so over the next year, as we experience this, is going to ask us to stop waiting for permission to be who we naturally already are. You already know who you are. It's just time to start being that now. Now, as beautiful as that does sound, the journey is just not simply about confidence. It is also about learning the difference between what is confidence and what is my pure ego. It's going to be this discovery for all of us in how we express ourselves authentically without looking for or needing, really needing. A need is different than a want. Need, I need this. I cannot survive without this. So without needing to have the approval of others to continue to move something forward. It's going to be also about recognizing that under the rays of the sun, true abundance is not created by becoming someone else. It's about embracing exactly who we are, who we've been, who we are standing in today. So throughout this video, we are going to continue to explore everything you need to know about Jupiter and Leo. And of course, by looking at how this transit is going to affect you, you really have an opportunity, I think, to sit down with your chart and to sit down with your past and to sit down with the people in your life and look a lot more consciously and confidently at it. So before we can take a deeper dive into this Jupiter in Leo, I think it's really important that we do take a minute to try to understand what Jupiter really is. Every planet represents a different part of our human experience, something that is trying to play out from us, right? Like the moon reflects our emotions, our instinctive purpose, these kinds of things. Jupiter has a different role. Jupiter's role is wisdom, growth, expansion, and opportunity. And the way that we do that is we take what we already know, we share it or put it out in the world in some way so that we can have that wisdom and that natural ease or talent, luck, or opportunity optimized, right? Throughout 1,000 years of astrological tradition, we have called Jupiter the greater benefic. And that's because it has for a very long time been associated with the blessings, the abundance, certainly protection. I really love to see Jupiter as a protective energy as well. But this ability here to broaden our lives is, I think, where Jupiter really shines. But I also think that it is really important for us to take a little pause right here and realize where I believe that Jupiter, as one of our tutor planets who helps us unfold our lessons, has been quite misunderstood. Many times we will hear it described as just the planet of luck. It's all going to be so good. And we immediately assume that things are going to appear or come to us without any effort on our part. And while Jupiter can certainly coincide with some fortunate opportunities, opportunities to teach, opportunities to share something, opportunities to have a more profound wisdom, Jupiter itself doesn't hand us the success. That's not a Jupiterian energy. Jupiter expands what already exists. So if you think of Jupiter while you're traveling with it for this next year, and even Jupiter in your natal chart, it's like if you see like a beautiful garden or a beautiful base of land. You can tell I'm a Taurus. The sun is not going to come out and just shine on select plants, select flowers, trees, animals, right? Instead, the sun comes and it's going to light the entire terrain. So it's going to light up everything that has taken root on the terrain in this garden space. Healthy plants are going to become healthier. They're going to grow. They're going to just, they're living their best. Weeds are also going to grow if they have not been tended to. Jupiter here, in a clearer understanding, I think, simply provides more energy, more space, more possibility. So that means where you've been investing and growing in your wisdom, in your education, in your healing, in your relationships, in wherever Jupiter sits in your chart, Jupiter is going to more often bring you opportunities that feel like they're really letting those efforts flourish. Right? At the same time, if you've been ignoring or avoiding or pushing off particular areas of your life that need your attention, and you'll know just by looking at the house that Jupiter in Leo is traveling through, where is Leo in your chart? Jupiter may enlarge the situation because something's been overlooked and it needs to be addressed and it can't be ignored. So in that sense, Jupiter is not just lucky, it's magnifying and it's revealing and it expands what is already ready for growth and shines a light on what is asking us to evolve with. Now, one of the other reasons I found that astrologers associate Jupiter with abundance is because the planet encourages us to also think beyond our limitations. So it's inviting us to move beyond some common mindset ideals, scarcity, fear, intimacy, thinking small about something. Jupiter is not here for that. Jupiter believes that this area of your life is capable of being bigger, becoming larger, becoming more current with the circumstances that are in your life. It doesn't mean that we pretend here that difficulties don't exist. Instead, Jupiter is teaching us to look for more possibility while we're facing whatever challenge, whatever opportunity is presenting itself to us, right? Because it is reminding us that our experience carries the potential for us to become the greatest teachers. Historically speaking, Jupiter is absolutely connected to higher learning, philosophy, religion, publishing, marketing, broadcasting, travel, exploration, things that take us beyond our current horizon, right? And all of these experiences broaden our horizon and our base for understanding, particularly of the collective world. And it helps us to become wiser through these experiences. So as Jupiter now comes and is sitting into the vibration of Leo, it is ready to change the quality of this expansion and ask the question of what is your new unique gift that you came here to share with the world. Every single one of us carries something that can only be expressed through us and it will never be duplicated. Jupiter is going to remind you that if it's not authentic, it won't be abundant. The abundance follows the authenticity. So the more willing we are to share our gifts in this Leo area of our chart, our creativity, our leadership, our us, our willingness to take a risk, to be visible, the more opportunity we will have to create, and not just for ourselves, but also for the people whose lives who will be touched by whatever it is that we have to offer. I want to say again that with Jupiter traveling here and Leo, not every opportunity, not every door is going to open overnight during this transit. It's just not going to happen that way. And it doesn't mean that massive moments of vulnerability will not be required, and that self-doubt is not going to creep itself into the story as well. It means that the transit is going to continue to reward our courage to step forward as who we really are. So I want you to really be thinking about that. Stepping forward, going forward with something before you feel completely ready. So over the next year, we're going to explore what does it look like to be really who I am? What is my gift that I came to share here with the world or the people about me? Because Jupiter's travel here is so much more than just being about the luck and the confidence. It's about becoming in this next year the fullest expression of who you can be, the fullest expression of what your joy, creativity, pleasure, play, and leadership were meant to be in this lifetime. in this particular area of your chart. So have a think about that as Jupiter is traveling through this particular area. We're going to continue to hear about Jupiter being in conversation through many of the different transits and aspects that are going to be unfolding for us here in 2026 and 2027. But right now, I want you to take this sentiment that I've been talking about and let's look at Jupiter's impact as it's transiting through all of the different houses. And just before we do that, I would love for you to grab your journal, grab your notebook, grab your Google Calendar, whatever it is for you. And I want you to go back into your life and to go into 2014, 2015 timeframe. And I want you to look at what was going on for you then, what was happening, particularly based on the house that it is in your chart. Now, one of the things that was actually going on for me last time Jupiter was in Leo, interestingly enough, was several things. One, Jupiter is in my 12th house, okay? Jupiter's traveling through Leo in my 12th house space. And one of the things that was going on is I literally lost a pet. I had the death of a pet happen there. Now, typically in the 12th house, we put our larger pets, but this was a pet who also lived on a more, the way our housing is set up is it's a farm. It's like a farm base, right? So along with bigger animals as well. So we had the death of a pet. One of the other things that was happening is I actually went into a personal kind of lockdown and isolation and started to build Stormie Grace. I had been building it and working it behind the scenes, right? And this time, as Jupiter is coming into Leo, the country of Spain has told me if I would like to stay here, I need to stay in the country of Spain, at least for the next year, in order to be granted my residency, right? So again, I'm kind of in a position where I'm locked in, but it's given me space to write yet another book and to take Stormie Grace to its next advancement. And so this is all happening at the time behind the scenes. And it required me to come out, to be visible, but also to confront these ideas of grief and loss. So for you, as we go back to the time period of 2014 to 2015, if you want to go back further, we're going back 2002, 2003 timeframe, 1990, 1991, what was happening in your lives? Because you have a pattern in your chart that continues to be activated and unfolded. So what did you do the last time Jupiter was here? What did you learn and where can you put that in your toolkit? And you can step into this Jupiter and Leo transit with your shades on because you are the sun and you're ready to do this walk with a hell of a lot of confidence and to say, actually, this is really who I am this time. And these are the people, places, and things I'm needing to surrender because it's time for things to come to their close, particularly if it is in your 12th house. All right, my absolutely beautiful friends, let's go ahead and take a look at where this is at in the different houses of your chart. All right, my beautiful first house friends, this is your year to expand your someone new. You may notice yourself becoming more confident, becoming more optimistic, more visible, more willing to take chances. And people may naturally gravitate towards you because your presence is becoming larger and more noticeable. This can be an incredible year for not a reinvention of yourself, but an actual presentation of yourself. How do you want to present yourself this year? Are you changing your appearance? Is that hair getting a little bigger this year? We're wearing bigger, more wild, out of your box styles. Are you launching a business? Are you starting a new chapter of your life? The opportunity is that the world begins to respond to the version of you that has been waiting to emerge, and now it's here, and it's time to really confidently bring that out. Now, some of the challenge that comes with this as well is remembering that your confidence does not require comparison. That will actually hurt the journey. Jupiter can sometimes make us believe that we have to be on or like them to prove ourselves. And you don't need to become someone else. You don't need to become someone bigger. You just need to become more fully yourself. Now, one of the other challenges can be that Jupiter in the first house can absolutely add those pounds to the waistline. Now, maybe you want to put on weight because you're here for the gains. You're growing that badunkadunk. I love that for you. But also, if it's just about snacking, you want to be a little bit mindful to make sure you've got your diet in control. Ask yourself as you're experiencing this transit for the next year, who am I? And what parts of me have been afraid to let the world see me, but I'm pretty ready to do it now. Jupiter in the second house. This is a year of expanding your relationship with money, values, self-worth, and receiving for sure. Now, financial opportunities for you can increase, but so will your awareness of how you actually relate to the word abundance, right? You may discover some new ways that you can earn money. You're going to build a business, you're going to ask for a raise, you're going to charge what you're worth, some of these things. But also, Jupiter might be magnifying your spending habits because you may have enough. It just may not be going to the right places or being invested in the right places. You know, if you've been using money for more of an emotional comfort, or avoiding the financial planning, or actually taking that financial strategy class, those patterns are going to become visible and really impossible to ignore, because it's not just about making more money. It's going to be about really believing that you are worthy of receiving and having it and engaging it. You're going to have to engage these ideas and concepts that you having money doesn't make you bad. These will be some real topics to explore. So ask yourself over this next year, as you're experiencing this transit, where have I been undervaluing my gifts and my resources? Jupiter in the third house. This is like the hungry caterpillar year for you. Your mind is hungry. You know, you might be feeling a bit more called this year to learn, teach, speak, write, create content. You're going to start that podcast, maybe share a video or a talk with a bit more confidence than ever. And this is a beautiful year for that, because it's a beautiful year for education, networking, communication. It's the third house. But what's the challenge? The challenge is that your mind may be moving faster than your schedule can keep up with. So you want to be a little bit mindful here. There can be just this information overload, too many projects, or everything sounds like a really exciting opportunity, or you've taken too many opportunities at once. I really want to encourage you here that while you're being the sun, because Jupiter is in Leo, to choose depth over distraction. And remember, revisit your own pattern. Where were you at in 2014? Where were you at in 2002? What were you doing? Now choose depth over the distraction there. Ask yourself, as you are experiencing this transit, what message am I here to communicate with the world? Jupiter in the fourth house, people, home, family, real estate, property, your emotional foundations. This is a year that is going to invite you to come back to those roots. Not so you can stay here, but so that you can strengthen what's already here, right? That Jupiter in Cancer really had us thinking about the internal structures and the Cancerian vibrational places like the fourth house anyways. So now it's time to strengthen what's here. Because the fourth house can represent your emotional foundations. It really does speak to your home, your family, your ancestry, and the places you return to when the outside world becomes too overwhelming. You know, the fourth house is the most private part of the chart. So it's reminding you that before you can really flourish in public, we need to have a foundation that supports you in private. So Jupiter being here is going to give an expansion to this home area. Maybe even the home itself. This could be practical. This could be physical. You're purchasing property. You're renovating your living space. A whole family member or somebody comes to live at your house, right? Some of you, I do think, will have this absolute I am the sun urge to surround yourself with beauty, warmth, comfort, because it's like the outer environment is starting to reflect where you're feeling this internal evolution. So Jupiter has then, of course, done its job and expanded the awareness here. One of the greatest gifts, I think, of this transit to your fourth house is going to be emotional maturity and realizing how much you've grown since it was here 12 years ago. You begin creating a home within yourself instead of searching for it through other people, those accomplishments, those relationships. So your sense of safety becomes something more that you're really able to cultivate. Now, the challenge here in the fourth house space is that Jupiter can sometimes encourage excess. You may be spending more than you intended on your home. You're overextending yourself trying to care for family members or being so focused on creating that external comfort that you actually are neglecting the emotional work underneath it. So as you're experiencing this transit over the next year, I want you to ask yourself, what kind of emotional foundation do I want to continue to expand, to build upon, that's going to support this next chapter of my life? Okay, Jupiter in the 5th house of joy, creativity, pleasure, and play. As Jupiter is traveling through here, it is about expression. It is about what it is like to be fully alive. Life may be asking you the most beautiful question I think that we can get. What brings you joy? Not because you're productive, not because you earned it, simply because it makes your soul come alive, right? It makes you feel like the sun, like you are the biggest light that steps into the room when you do this thing. So some of you, I think, will rediscover some artistic talents or creative talents, and they've maybe been neglected for years. They've been trying to get to the surface, and they are finally coming up. You know, you're going to do that art. You're going to write that book. You're going to start the YouTube channel, dance, paint, sing, love, date, get on the floor with your kids because you haven't done that in a long time. For many people, this transit is also going to bring those opportunities in romance. So I wouldn't be surprised if a new relationship does begin, or if you have an existing relationship and it's becoming a bit more playful because you're able to reconnect to your own body and your own capacity for fire and for love after maybe a very long period of protecting your heart, guarding that thing. If children are a part of your life, they might really become this source of growth, inspiration, opportunity, learning, challenge. You know, they could be a focus of what's coming up for you at this particular time. But I do want you to remember in your 5th house that your creativity is not some frivolous, selfish endeavor. Joy is not selfish. Your playfulness isn't a distraction from your purpose. It's a part of the purpose. Now, the challenge with Jupiter in the 5th house is believing that excitement automatically means fulfillment. There can be a real temptation to overspend, overindulge, chase romance or pleasure without discernment. We're seeking constant entertainment to avoid doing the deeper work. True joy isn't created through constant stimulation. It's going to come when you're just doing the thing that makes you feel like the sun. So ask yourself, as you're experiencing this transit over the next year, when's the last time I did something because it just made me feel joyful and alive? Jupiter in the 6th house, your daily life, your purpose, your schedule, your routine. Now listen, the 6th house is not always glamorous, okay? It's not always glamorous. It doesn't usually receive the attention that the 10th house or the 5th house receive. But in many ways, the 6th house determines whether or not your dreams ever become reality, because the 6th house is the house of your daily habits, your work, your mental health and wellness. How are you speaking to yourself? What are the routines that you have in your life? Are they routines that are of service to you and to others? It's the small choices that quietly shape your future. So when Jupiter comes here, it doesn't change your life overnight. It doesn't. It changes your life one day, 1 hour at a time. And eventually, those days all put together lead to a changed life. So you may be establishing some healthier routines in your life, or finding work that feels more meaningful, or letting work be more meaningful to you. Certainly your physical, mental health, your wellness, looking for support, hiring support, getting organized, finding systems that allow your life to flow with greater ease. And sometimes people really expect Jupiter to bring these enormous breakthroughs. That's not ever been my experience. But oftentimes what we do see is that Jupiter's greatest gift is to help you to become the kind of person who can see what needs to be adjusted to have the success that you want here, and then to sustain the success once it arrives. So look at the relationship you have with your daily routine. Have you been listening to your daily routine? Have you been nourishing your daily routine? Or have you been expecting to continue to carry responsibilities without having a system of care that it really deserves? Now, the challenge here is overcommitment. Believing that you have to say yes to everything all day long, or measuring your worth in your daily routine only by how productive you are. Jupiter is a reminder here that sustainable growth isn't created by doing more and more and more and more and more. It's created by doing what matters consistently. So ask yourself as you experience this transit for the next year, what small habit, if I practiced it every day for the next year, if I added joy into my small habits every day, what would it be that would completely transform my life? Jupiter in the 7th house of conscious chosen one-on-one relationships and partnerships. This is one of the most important, I think, chapters of your cycle, because it comes into a relationship house. And the 7th house is often associated with just marriage and romantic partnerships, but it represents so much more than that, right? It governs every significant conscious one-on-one relationship you have chosen to have in your life. That is the romantic partners, the business partners, the clients, those close friendships, your mentors, your collaborators, and even persons who fall under the enemy, like open enemy. You have conflict with these people. They are in this portion of the chart as well. So this is asking you, as Jupiter is transiting here, who do you become when you are in relationship with another person? Do you dim your sunshine? The sun never dims itself. So who do you become when you're in relationship with another person? As Jupiter moves through here, you may find yourself attracting people to you who really expand your world in some way, and whether it's a new relationship that appears and it encourages you to think bigger, dream larger, believe in the next possibility, particularly in ways that you hadn't been able to consider before, or it's an existing relationship that deepens as you and this other person begin to build something really meaningful together. It's still the goal for expansion. Now, professionally, I think this is an excellent transit for collaboration. You may be finding yourself with having more ease and ability to attract the clients that you want to work with more easily, or you find supportive business partners, investors, or working alongside people whose skills actually complement your own. Jupiter reminds you that sometimes the greatest opportunities will not come from Leoing it. You cannot do it by yourself. They're going to come from choosing the right people to walk with you to get it done. Now, Jupiter has a shadow, and because Jupiter expands everything it touches, it can also magnify unhealthy relationship patterns. If you've been giving away your patterns, your power, if you've been ignoring red flags or expecting someone else to make you feel whole, those patterns may become impossible to ignore, or you've been trying to do everything by yourself. If you've been afraid of intimacy in any way, whether that's through business collaboration, personal collaboration, mentorship, you've been reluctant to trust other people, Jupiter may place you in a situation that does encourage you to open your heart again. So as you're experiencing this transit over the next year, ask yourself this question: who inspires me to become more joyfully and more fully myself? And am I offering that same gift in return? All right, Jupiter traveling through this 8th house space of intimacy and assets. Prepare for one of the deepest, most transformative chapters that happens in your 12-year cycle, because the 8th house has this reputation for intensity, but I prefer to think of it as just really profound transformation to your intimacy and your assets, because it governs the experiences that change us from the roots down, the place where you think, no, it's all going all right over here. Scorpio in the scorpionic 8th house energy reminds us that everybody has an Achilles heel beneath that surface, right? So when we're speaking to the intimacy, to the assets, to the vulnerability, shared finances, investments, inheritance, taxes, debt, psychological healing, renewal, astrology, trust itself, this is where we're going to look at where these changes can be made. Now, unlike the seventh house, which teaches us this relation to another person, by the time we're in the eighth house, it's teaching us how we merge, right? In the eighth house, there is this asking for us to release some control, to actually consciously, willingly be in the vulnerability, to discover what happens when we stop gripping the world so tightly and have our claw marks in it. Because it's who we used to be. And instead, Jupiter's going to provide these opportunities that will arise through needing to merge. Now, whether that's a shared resource, like, financial support comes through a partner, a business, a collaboration, you get those insurance checks, those royalties, those inheritance, whatever that is, or you look to build wealth. Maybe you become more interested in long-term financial planning, but it does come from being paired with another resource. But I really think that the finances are only part of the transit story, because emotionally and intimately, this becomes an extraordinary period of healing. Old fears, relationship wounds, these patterns of trust, stories of abandonment, betrayal, relationship with your own body, your sexual organs, right? Your pleasure. You may find yourself drawn into a space of fear in investigating this. But remember, Leo reminds us that the true courage isn't just about acknowledging it. It is also getting on stage with it, allowing yourself to know this area of your being, and also allowing someone else to truly know you here and help you bring it to the next level. Sometimes courage is trusting another person enough to let them love the parts of you that you've hidden for a very long time. Now, the challenge I see here with Jupiter in the eighth house is believing that you have to control every outcome before you can feel safe. You might also feel a bit tempted to take on unnecessary, intimate, or financial risks, or assume that abundance is just going to appear without planning, without having help, without some kind of joining with another resource. Look, Jupiter is generous, but it's not that generous. It asks us to be wise and to steward the resources we've been given without the fear of change and needing to control the outcome. So as Jupiter is transiting through this area of your chart over this next year, I would encourage you to ask yourself the question, what part of my life am I still trying to control when life may be asking me to trust instead? Jupiter in the ninth house space of publishing, marketing, broadcasting, expanding. There's an expansion of a worldview that comes here as well. The ninth house is quite naturally associated with Jupiter. So this is one of the places where I feel like the energy flows most naturally. And this place of higher learning, philosophy, spirituality, publishing, marketing, broadcasting, YouTubing, right? Long distance travel, foreign languages, cultures, law, the things in our life that have meaning. During this transit, you might begin to feel restless about life or things that you have always known that made up your life. That routine that really felt comfortable now feels too small, and you find yourself wanting to have an experience that stretches you or exposes you more to the world. And this isn't necessarily because your current life is wrong. It's because your soul is going, I want to grow. And growth requires us to get beyond what feels familiar. So for some of you, that may look like you're traveling to places that you've always dreamed of, or you're in places that are far from home. For others, it's going to be school, pursuing that certification, publishing that book, teaching that course, learning that language. It's an incredible transit for anybody who feels called to become both that long-term student, that lifelong student, and the lifelong teacher at the same time. You may really enjoy this transit. But also, I think it's worth taking note of your spiritual beliefs and how those are evolving and expanding. The questions that once seemed like they settled all, or the answers that seemed like it settled all of your questions before, they might be coming back and you're reflecting on them more deeply. Or you're becoming more interested in some kind of philosophy, comparative religion, questions about religion, mythology, psychology, any of these things. And what you're doing is really asking and expanding what you know of yourself. Now, there is challenge with Jupiter in the ninth house as well, and it is believing that I have already found and have all of the answers. Expansion can sometimes become certainty And that certainty can close the door to staying open-minded enough to be continuing to learn. So the healthiest expression of Jupiter remains curious, right? Jupiter is curious about what's going on out there. So it's going to understand that every answer eventually actually leads to the next question. Now, there's also a temptation with Jupiter here to chase one exciting opportunity after the other without grounding those experiences into daily life. It would be great to go back to school, but can your finances and your budget and your energy actually support that? Travel, education, exploration, they're beautiful, but wisdom is only valuable if it changes the way that we live, right? You can go over there. I want you to go to Italy. I want you to go see it. I want you to go do it, but is it going to change you? Or are you escaping? So ask yourself as you're experiencing this transit, what beliefs have shaped my life up until now? And are they still helping me become the person that I want to be? Jupiter through the 10th house, this is we see you in public. It's the place of your career, your soul level calling, your purpose, your leadership, your legacy. Now, as Jupiter is moving here, it's visible. We're going to see you do what you're doing here, okay? Because when Jupiter is here in this area of your chart, yes, doors can begin to open that encourage you to step into that greater visibility, step into that responsibility, step into that promotion that's rising. The new career opportunity may be there, but you have to step through the door and go to it. You may launch that business, receive the recognition for work already done, expand your influence in some way. There can also just simply be this feeling of like, I have more confidence in the direction of something I'm doing and taking on, but people will begin to notice you. And it's not because you're trying harder to be seen. It's because you're just more aligned with the work. You're just like, I am the sun. I am the sun. I'm Leo. And that is the dimension that gets added to this particular transit. But the other piece of this is that whatever we see you doing, it's not about the success. It's about leading from the heart. Because Leo is going to remind you that even in public, the truest leadership is not built on fear. It's not built on control. It isn't about having the loudest voice in the room. It's not about having the most titles or the coolest resume. It is because it's authentic. It comes from a place where your sunshine steps into the public and inspires other people to believe not in you, but in themselves, because you had the courage to believe in yourself first. Now, there's challenges that come with Jupiter being in this placement as well, and it can be absolutely grandiosity. Absolute grandiosity. So you want to be mindful of that. As you're experiencing this transit over this next year, I want you to really ask yourself this question, whether it's at work, your community, in your own home, in your sex life, in your marriage, wherever we see you in your title, right? What kind of leader do you want to be? Jupiter traveling through the 11th house this year of friends, social spaces, organizations, your dreams and future vision that you have for yourself. Jupiter traveling through this area of your chart, your world is going to begin to expand, and it's through connection. You might meet people who are like the sun, they feel like the sun when you're standing next to them, and they completely change the direction of your life. Or maybe there's an introduction or even just a conversation. Certainly unexpected opportunity could appear, and it opens the door that you didn't think it was possible. You're like, I know that door was there, but I just didn't think it was ever going to be possible for me. The people you surround yourself with are going to be your greatest advocates to getting through that door, because they're going to become the mirrors of your future. They're reflecting back to you the person you actually are now and who you want to become. So I think it's such a beautiful transit for collaboration. If you've been thinking about joining a community or finding your tribe, you want to go to a conference, you want to build your own membership, you want to create the community that you seek, you want to grow your social media presence, Jupiter is going to encourage you to step forward in there, because there is a life that you've been dreaming about. And even if you're living your dream life, there is something in there that maybe once felt unrealistic or like I'm not there yet, and it feels now like it is within reach. But Jupiter asks for discernment here. Not every group, not every tribe, not every friendship is meant to stay forever. It may come and it may not stay forever. Not every community is going to really support your growth. You may be popping in there to gain information, learn a skill, collaborate for a short time, and then you're done. But as you evolve, you kind of will quite naturally outgrow those social circles, and that can feel bittersweet, but it also creates for the relationships that actually reflect who you are and who you're becoming, instead of someone who has to hold on, right? Don't say yes to every invitation. Don't say yes to every collaboration, and don't expand without using a little discernment. Instead, I would invite you, while this transit is happening over the next year, to ask yourself, who are the tribe that inspire me to become the highest version of myself? And who am I becoming because of the people I choose to walk alongside as well? Jupiter in the 12th house of things going on behind the scenes, closure, healing, spiritual growth, preparation for a new beginning, surrender. The 12th house is often one of our it's one of our closet houses. It's misunderstood because it's quiet and we just throw everything in there. And in a world that celebrates constant achievement, constant outward energy, the 12th house is such a reminder that some of the greatest growth happens where nobody is watching and nobody can see. It's also the house of the unconscious mind, our dreams, our solitude, our forgiveness, our compassion, our spirituality, endings, the invisible soul work. It's the final chapter before Jupiter is going to cross and get to your ascendant and begin an entirely new 12-year journey of your visibility. So think about this year as your season before the sunrise. The light is coming in, but first life is going to ask you to rest, to reflect, and to release. As Jupiter moves through this house, you may find yourself craving the solitude, or you may become more intuitive and reflective, and you're kind of more interested in a practice that nourishes the inner world. You're like, that is harshing my mellow. No, thank you. Meditation, prayer, dream work, retreats, spending time in nature, humming. These may all be where your craving is at. And it's not a sign that you're falling behind if you're like, I don't want to be that visible this year. I actually want some time to go behind the scenes. It's really a sign that your soul is preparing for what's next. Because I think that one of the greatest gifts of this transit that you'll get to experience is, of course, healing. But the old wounds, the fear, the grief, the need to surrender, limiting beliefs that have been living beneath the surface and holding you back, they're starting to rise, and it's not about overwhelming you. It's release. In the 12th house, we release. And Jupiter has a beautiful way in the 12th house as acting as a guardian angel, right? It's keeping you safe as you're bringing your wisdom and your compassion into the places where there's only been pain or grief before. So you may find yourself forgiving people you never thought you could forgive, including yourself. It's an incredibly creative period. So let yourself dream, dance, draw, sense the things before they happen. Watch for the patterns. Trust your inner guidance. Trust your guides, even in the solitude. Now, there is challenge with Jupiter in the 12th house as well. And I think the biggest challenge is resisting the invitation to slow down. Often our culture really teaches us that productivity equals worth, but this transit is going to ask you to discover a different truth about yourself. Rest is productive. Healing is productive. Reflection is productive. Forgiveness is productive. Working your spiritual program is productive. And sometimes it's the most important work that you'll ever do, and it's invisible. Nobody else will ever see it, and maybe you don't get to brag about it. There's also an awareness of our patterns of escapism. If you've really been avoiding your emotions, whether it's through drinking, drugs, work, distraction, other unhealthy coping mechanisms, Jupiter will magnify those habits so that they can be transformed. And it is not about judgment, it's about freedom. So it's a beautiful year as the Jupiter cycle is coming to a close through your 12th house space, to realize that something extraordinary will have happened for you, but it was beneath the surface. because again, you are quietly preparing for a completely new chapter of your life and your wisdom. And when Jupiter enters into your first house next year, you will not simply be starting another transit. You're going to be beginning an entirely new 12-year cycle of your growth, your identity, and your possibilities. So don't rush the season, honor it, trust it, and ask yourself over the next year as you experience it, what am I ready to release so that I can fully receive the life that is waiting for me on the other side of this chapter? All right, my beautiful friends, I love you, and I'll see you in our next video.